Well, welcome back. In this episode of Time Machine, we'll explore the unique and surprising history of Oceanside, California. Like my other videos in this series, I have colorized and enhanced each of the following historic images, not to alter the past, but to give these images a pulse and help transport you back in time. No disrespect intended to the original photographers. The tale of Oceanside, California begins like most coastal Southern California towns and is rooted in the land's first inhabitants, the Otohome, known today as the Luiseno people. This 1893 photograph by Charles C. Piers captures three Luiseno women, later identified in the Oceanside Blade as Rosaria, Tomasa, and Vesalia. Visitors from Oceanside and beyond brought them food and clothing while listening to their stories of the mission and their youth. One striking detail in this image of the mission is the large pepper tree on the left. Planted in 1830 by a grateful sailor who gifted seeds to the missionaries, it is the first Brazilian pepper tree in California, and it still stands today. Mission San Luis Rey earned the title King of the Missions for its sheer size and productivity. Established in 1798, it towers over the valley, once ancestral lands of the Luiseno people. By 1830, it wasn't just large, it was the largest building in California. Under the mission's watchful eyes of the Padres, and at its peak, the mission's cattle numbered in the tens of thousands, and its grain fed half of California. But after secularization in the 1830s, the empire crumbled. The mission's fertile fields were carved into ranchos, its barns emptied, and its once mighty agricultural machine went silent. Then came the 1880s boom, a tide of settlers chasing the California dream. Drawn by rumors of endless sunshine and rich soil, they staked homesteads across the old mission lands. Years of generous rainfall made dry farming crops like barley and wheat seem like magic, and the valley once again sprang to life, at least until the dry years in the 1890s. By the late 1800s, Mission San Luis Rey was a shadow of its former glory, its walls crumbling and fields abandoned. But in 1892, Father Joseph O'Keefe and Franciscan friars from Mexico returned to restore the King of the Missions. They rebuilt the church, revived the orchards, and channeled water once more from the San Luis Rey River. By 1895, the mission bells rang once again. With the influx of families moving west following the Civil War and completion of the Transcontinental Railway, Southern California slowly transformed from ranching to modern farming. Tragically, this also marked the end of an era for the indigenous people of California. In the late 1890s, the Luiseno people around Oceanside faced heartbreaking upheaval. Federal policies forced them from their ancestral lands to distant reservations, shattering villages that had endured long before Mission San Luis Rey's founding. The death of Luiseno elder Tomasa in 1899, a woman who had lived through the mission era, marked the end of a direct link to that history. At the turn of the century, Southern California was still a bit rough around the edges. In the 1870s, the Santa Margarita Ranch may have played host to one of the Wild West's most infamous outlaws, Jesse James. After the James Gang's disastrous Minnesota bank robbery, Jesse fled west by train, while his wounded brother Frank limped along by steamship through Panama. Legend says the brothers reunited at the Wells Fargo stage stop on Santa Margarita Ranch before vanishing into hiding, a secret meeting etched forever in outlaw lore. Although cattle and sheep ranching may have been slowly disappearing, farming was booming once more. Here's a team of horses and wagons harvesting hay, a vital necessity for a horse-driven society. The local dairies also needed a regular supply. Speaking of dairies, here's the Hage Creamery, taken in the 1890s. This is just one of the many entrepreneurs popping up throughout the San Luis Rey Valley. But when it came to recreation, the Valley residents would simply say, "Let's go Oceanside." You see where that's headed. In 1881, sheep rancher Andrew Jackson Myers settled near the San Luis Rey Valley and envisioned a seaside resort on the California coast. After securing a 160-acre homestead in 1883, he hired Cave Coots Jr. to survey what became downtown Oceanside. Myers built a beautiful bathhouse, founded the town's first water company and bank, and proudly cast the first vote for Oceanside's incorporation on July 3, 1888. Filed on September 14, 1887, this tract map shows the site of the original homestead and future city of Oceanside, California. If you look closely, you can see the recently completed train depot and the railway line connecting north to San Juan Capistrano along the coast. In this colorful and wishful lithograph, you can see the hopes and dreams of a burgeoning seaside resort and planned commercial port. In March of 1888, a wharf company was formed and proposed building Oceanside's first pier. Construction began in May of 1888, and by August that same year had reached almost 1,200 feet in length. Unfortunately, this wooden pier, or wharf, was all but destroyed by large winter storm surf in December of 1890. Remnants of the pier pilings can still be seen during very low tides. As we pan further north, you can see the bathhouse built by A.J. Myers in 1885, and behind it on the bluff must be the South Pacific Hotel, built in the same year this lithograph was made. As we pan back, you can really see the core of the newly incorporated city, with the train station acting as its focal point. This is thought to be the only photo surviving of Oceanside's first pier. The remains of the first pier that washed ashore in 1890 were collected by the enterprising owner of the South Pacific Hotel in hopes of building a second pier. That would come to fruition in 1894, this time at the foot of 3rd Street by Myers Bathhouse, and by design directly below the South Pacific Hotel. In this shot taken from the recently completed South Pacific Hotel, you can see the new train depot with Cleveland Street in the background. I've summarized a first-hand account as reported in the Illustrated History of Southern California in 1890. It goes as follows. A city charter was adopted in July 1888. The inhabitants are between 600 and 700, and they are for the most part of high order of worth and moreover very enterprising and aggressive in a business sense. The Russ Lumber and Mill Company has done business here since Oceanside started. It has furnished lumber for nearly every house in the city. There are 3 stores for groceries and general merchandise. They all report business good and growing better. The summer visitors, the hotel and railroad business, and the increasing number of thrifty ranchers in the country about Oceanside all contribute to make the store business a success. Here's the Bunker family at their house located at 322 North Cleveland Street. Built in 1886, this building is one of the first brick buildings in Oceanside and one of 3 brick buildings built in the 1880s which are still standing. It was both their home as well as a store on the first floor and a boarding house on the second, and serving as a meeting hall and place for dances and church services. The South Pacific Hotel was a grand wooden hotel built in Oceanside in 1887 at Pacific and 3rd Street, now Pierview Way. Designed to attract train passengers, this 4-story building actually faced east towards the railroad tracks rather than towards the ocean. The goal, of course, was to attract visitors and potential homeowners as the train passed back and forth between San Diego and Los Angeles. As reported in the Illustrated History of Southern California, the Bank of Oceanside has contributed its full share to the prosperity of the city. The bank building itself would do credit to a city of 50,000 inhabitants. The business done by the banking institutions of a city is always an index of its prosperity or adversity. Early Oceanside hosted a number of general stores, including this one, the Pioneer Store located on 2nd Street. Built in 1885 by the Reese brothers, stores like this functioned as social centers and stocked everything from groceries and clothing to farm tools and beehives. I'm curious about the sign in the background that says white with what looks like a star above it. Any ideas? Here is the J.F. Kolb's livery stable in 1888. Located on Broadway Street, now Cleveland Street, Kolb advertised in the South Oceanside Diamond. Horses boarded by the day, week, or month. The very best of care given to stock in my charge. Fine rigs and gentle horses. I guess loading hay works up a thirst. It appears you could buy a drink next door for less than 2 bits. In 1885, the Russ Mill and Lumber Company of San Diego opened a lumber company in Oceanside on 3rd Street. This was later incorporated as the Oceanside Lumber Company by M.W. Spence in 1912. When it opened, it became an essential supplier for the growing town, providing a full line of building materials, including sash, doors, and moldings. While looking through the Oceanside Historical Society's website, one of the best ones I've seen, by the way, I came across a curious story. As per the Historical Society, in 1888, his father built a hardware store on 3rd Street, now Pierview Way. It is very likely that Wilton began working on his invention at his father's store, which was later converted into a boarding house and is now the Brick Hotel at 408 Pierview Way. The July 23, 1898 edition of Oceanside Blade newspaper reported, W.S. Schuler, the Oceanside inventor, has just been granted 17 claims for patents on a motor carriage. Oceanside is getting to the front with its representation of inventions. We'll soon be riding in motor carriages. One of the earliest settlers in the area was the Herbert Crouch family. Immigrating from Australia, Mr. Crouch settled in the San Luis Rey Valley in 1869. A sheep rancher, Mr. Crouch used the present-day site of Oceanside as part of his grazing range. The Borden's Cash Store, where your dollar buys the most. This shot looks like it must be on the 4th of July. I love the western false front architecture. It just screams Old West. Some cool details in this shot. Looks like a celebration of sorts on the 2nd-story deck on the left, possibly to view a parade. Here's the local marching band traveling south along Cleveland Street. You can see a couple railroad cars on the left side and the Russ Lumber and Mill Company at the end of the street. It was handy having a railroad siding connecting to ports in San Diego, as well as McFadden's on Balboa Peninsula and the Long Wharf in Santa Monica. Here's the corner of Tremont and 3rd Street, today called Pierview Way. Tremont was 1 block east of Cleveland Street, which would make this downtown Oceanside in the 1890s. Down on Cleveland Street in the 1890s, you would find both the fashion stables as well as a bunker store and boarding house. Changing hands and names many times over the years and falling into disrepair, the bunker building was finally boarded up. This building was lovingly restored in the 1980s and is now a historic site. After Oceanside's first pier was destroyed in 1890, the owner of the South Pacific Hotel began campaigning for a new pier, this time to be built directly below his hotel at 3rd Street. Finally, in 1894, the town built its second pier, this time built with iron pilings at a length of 400 feet. It was affectionately called the Little Iron Wharf. By this time, the South Pacific Hotel was hosting inland guests coming to enjoy the cool ocean breeze, or vacationers or visitors taking the train from points north or south. Many of the photos I've shared were taken from this vantage point of this hotel. It was definitely the tallest building around at that time, besides the Mission, that is. I think this shot was taken on the 3rd floor at the southeast corner of the hotel. If you look carefully through the window, you can see Cleveland Street across the railroad tracks. It sure looked like a pretty fancy establishment for its day, or any day for that fact. Here is a rare shot of one of the hotel rooms facing the ocean. Oceanside's second pier can be seen through the window. I wonder which rooms were the most expensive, those facing the train station or the ocean and the beautiful sunsets. This pier would eventually be destroyed by storm surf in 1902. Oceanside's third pier was built in 1903. Built with steel rails purchased from the Southern California Railroad Company at $25 a ton, it reached 1,300 feet long and 12 feet wide. Here are some beachgoers on the south side of the pier at the turn of the century. You can see the salt air took its toll on the steel rails. It appears there have been a number of repairs made to the pier by this point. Nothing was going to stop Mother Nature, though. This pier eventually succumbed in 1926. This shot was titled "Breaking Waves South of Oceanside Pier" and was taken in 1904. What a great shot of the beach break there at the pier. I know they've held the World Body Surfing Championships there for almost 50 years, and the annual pier swim for almost 100. Myers Bathhouse was built in 1885, below the bluff and north of the present-day pier. Bathhouses were a common amenity at beach resorts at this time, offering a place to change into bathing attire suitable for the beach and Victorian dress standards. Many bathhouses actually rented swim outfits to visitors. Here's a rousing game of tug-of-war, and wow, they didn't fool around, did they? On a side note, see if you can spot anyone not wearing a hat. At the turn of the century, grocery stores generally stocked dry goods like flour, sugar, spices, and coffee. Perishables like fresh meat, dairy, and most produce could be purchased separately from specialty shops, while street vendors and farmers often provided fresh fruits and vegetables. I see a box with White King printed on it. I discovered they made soap and other cleaning products. Does that large 5-gallon can say Ginger Snaps on the label? Check out all the canned foods and products on display. Before the widespread mechanization of the 1910s and 20s, canned food was relatively expensive and not fully trusted by the public due to inconsistent and occasionally unsanitary packing methods. Even though almost everyone wore a hat in the 1890s, a haircut and shave were considered an opportunity to look presentable. It was the Victorian era. In the 1890s, barbershops served as social hubs for men and often provided minor medical and dental services, a legacy of their barber-surgeon origins. By the time this photo was taken, the well-manicured gardens was in full bloom, and the hotel was considered a key part of Oceanside's growing tourism industry. The number of permanent residents at this time numbered about 330. In June of 1896, disaster struck when Oceanside's grand South Pacific Hotel burst into flames, a fate of many old wooden structures at that time. Despite desperate efforts, pitchers, wash bowls, and even a hose from the Opera House, the water failed to reach the blaze. Proprietor Melchior Piper and owner A.P. Hotling watched helplessly. With no insurance to rebuild, Oceanside's proudest landmark was gone forever. Less than a decade later, things were about to change for the better. Here's Oceanside's third pier taken in 1904, another pivotal time in the development of Oceanside, and the city's pleasure pier and train station would remain the focal point for this burgeoning tourist beach town. This shot looking towards the shore, also taken in 1904, captures both the Myers Bathhouse, built in 1885, as well as the newly constructed San Luis Rey Hotel on the bluff above. The bathhouse would also be demolished this same year to make way for the new Oceanside Plunge. This photo also captures a great collection of stylish hats. Later that year, the bathhouse was torn down and replaced with the Oceanside Electric Light Plant and Bathhouse. Not only did this provide electricity for downtown Oceanside, but also provided heated ocean water for swimming. Oceanside was finally making strides to regain its place as a resort destination. An early advertisement for the San Luis Rey Hotel humorously worded read, "Among other attractions at this hotel are tennis, golf, fishing, hot salt plunge, and the safest surf bathing in the world. A paradise for people with overworked brains or nerves. A quiet resort without being stupid." By 1904, San Diego, Oceanside's closest big city neighbor, was rapidly modernizing. With the Panama Canal's completion in 1903 and San Diego's natural harbor, this city would become a significant commercial and cultural center in Southern California. I believe Oceanside is the third oldest incorporated city in San Diego County, after San Diego, a national city. Well, I think this is probably a logical spot to end part one of this photographic trip back in time, and I hope you've enjoyed it and that I've sparked your curiosity. I'm already working on part two. I would like to thank the many local historians, historical societies, and Facebook sites that have provided the bulk of photographs and historical information about events, names, places, and dates that I have included with this colorful peek back in time. Keep in mind that this, like my other videos, is simply an attempt to bring to life these historical photographs and weave them together, along with a wee bit of local lore. If you're interested in the unique history of Oceanside, California, and would like to know more, please consider becoming a member and donating to the Oceanside Historical Society. You can reach them at the link below. I'd be remiss if I failed to also mention Oceanside's California Surf Museum, located in downtown Oceanside on 312 Pierview Way. If you'd like to learn more about the local surf culture, you should visit the museum, or at least check out their website. I've attached the link below. Well, again, thanks for watching. Aloha.